Hello, everyone. I just wanted to put this together for all of you, but especially for the folks that had ended up missing yet another lab, um, so that I can talk to you about what presentations should look like. Um, Science communication is a big part of science. Being able to tell people what you did and converse about your results is an important part of pretty much all scientific careers. So first, we're going to be using PowerPoint for these presentations, right? So you're going to have slides. Um, what we're looking for is good layout, good visual interest, and text that is effective. So what you're going for, PowerPoint is, and something that PowerPoint is really good at, or at least these presentations are good at, is increasing visual interest. All right, you want to show some stuff up there that are going to catch people's eye and are going to also illustrate what you're talking about. So here's a good example. We've got a little bit of text. We've got nice large illustrations. The keep in mind that something that looks good on a small screen might not still show up all that well in a large presentation space. All right, think about the people in the back of the room. Are they going to be able to see what you're putting up there and be able to know what's going on? Right. Where an illustration like this might be a problem is sometimes dark backgrounds are an issue, but the foreground in these is pretty light, so these should work okay. This is an example of something to avoid. So what we've got here is a whole bunch of stuff on the slide. Doesn't have any real sort of um, layout theme. It's not really telling. There's a whole bunch of stuff. The other thing is that a lot of these are very small. So if you're watching this on a laptop right now, this probably looks fine and you can read all of this text in here. All right, but if you were sitting in the back of a classroom, the back of a lecture hall, you wouldn't be able to see any of these little things, right? Or you at least wouldn't be able to read them. All right, so avoid over cluttering your slide and avoid making stuff so small that you either can't see the detail in it or can't read any of the text. So as far as your text goes, make sure you're not obscuring it with your illustration. So this is a good example. I pulled this actually from my own presentation. So this is something I need to think about and do all the time. Is think about how to make these better. So this is one where, yeah, it sort of works, but if you're in the back of the room, the darker background with the dark text might not show up all that well. Here's a slightly better way to do it. We put the text off center. So now you can see our red blood cells very easily, and you can see all of our important text. And that brings me to the text itself. So you want to be as succinct as possible when you're using text. You want to try not to cover the slide with a whole lot of text. Part of that is that folks can generally read pretty quickly. But if you've got a ton of text on there, they might be involved in reading that text and not paying attention to what you're talking about, right? And all text slides just look boring and they tend to put people off. Avoid a lot of long sentences for the same sort of reason. So short, digestible chunks. The way I like to do it is think that your audience can read your slide in 5 to 10 seconds and then be back to what you're talking about. Bulleted lists like I'm using here seem to work well. And just keep in mind that the presentation is about what you're saying to the audience. It's not about what they're reading off the slides, right? The slides are there to, and the text in those slides is there to emphasize what you're talking about. All right, so here's a text heavy slide. This one's not too bad, but there's a lot of stuff there. All right, this could be broken up maybe into 2 or even 3 slides with maybe an illustration for each thing. This one's a little bit better. So we've got an illustration. So we've got some visual interest there. It's, so we've got multimodal learning. You can think of it that way. So people are getting something to look at, and some relatively simple text to read. So the other part that I'm going to look at when you're doing these presentations is your presentation style. This is important because you're communicating with an audience. Right? You want to be able to make them feel like they're being part of this, that they're part of this conversation. All right, so your clarity, your volume, all those sort of things contribute to that. So a few sort of pointers there. Good volume. All right, it's not a huge classroom, but there's a lot of stuff going on. There tends to be air handling equipment, that kind of stuff. So specifically for us, make sure your volume's up, right, so people can hear you. I know some people are nervous. It can be tough to do, and it feels sometimes like you're yelling, but keep that volume up. Another good one is don't read off your slides. Your slides aren't a script for you to read off, right? They're there for the students in the audience to get information off of. You can use them as cues for what you need to say next, but if you read off of them, they've already probably read that, and now you're saying it back to them. And when that happens, they're not listening to you now because they're like, oh, they're saying the same thing back to me that I just read. I don't need to listen. You lose your audience that way. And make eye contact. All right, at least be facing out towards your audience. All right, not back towards your slides. I know this makes some people nervous. If making actual eye contact makes you nervous, one of the ones you can do is you can look at the top of people's heads, right? Or you can look just over people. And generally, your eye line is not that precise. Folks will see that as kind of being you actually looking at them, right? The other thing that I forgot to put in here is that you also want to practice your presentation. The more times you do it, the smoother it's going to be. The other thing is that you can get an idea of how long it is going to be. All right, so you guys overall, your groups are shooting for 10 minutes. If you're someone that speaks really quickly, when you're practicing it, you're probably going to be even faster when you're up in front of an audience and nervous. Okay, so keep that in mind. Also, if you go through it and you're taking 20 minutes to get through half of the slides, you might need to pare those slides down a little bit and go for something a little bit more succinct. All right, so I hope this helps. If anybody has any questions, just let me know. If you want me to take a look at slides or anything like that, I can do that as well. All right, so hope everybody's doing well. We'll see you in lab.